Thanks for watching. Please take this time to join the notification gang. People who had hallucinations, what was the creepiest thing you have seen? I get sleep paralysis quite often. Scariest one was when I was 11. I was sleeping on my back with my head to the side looking at my wall. I woke up looking at myself in the big mirror on the wall. Mirror me was staring back, but he wasn't paralyzed, and looked like he wanted to kill me. The creepiest thing I've seen while hallucinating, when I was maybe 14 or 15, I had seen a tall lanky silhouette at the bottom of my stairs. Its head was facing up to me but I couldn't see any facial features. It reached out with one of its arms up to me, but before anything else happened I closed my eyes and stood there for about 5 minutes, maybe 10. I opened my eyes and poof, it's gone. I don't know if you'd class that as creepy though. I regularly had hallucinations before I got on my antipsychotics. Still get some today, but they're nowhere near as vivid as they used to be. I saw a lot of tall, pale humanoid figures with no facial features. Scared me shitless when I read the Slenderman creepypasta. Also saw plenty of nondescript shadows. One time I saw one near my pantry looking like it was sorting through the food. That actually made me less afraid since I imagined it was just grabbing a snack. My tactile hallucinations were the worst. I would feel itchy all over or felt like bugs were crawling over my skin. My auditory ones were the less frightening ones. I'd usually just hear voices that were too quiet to understand. It felt like I was hearing someone else's conversation in passing. I've been on my meds for 4-ish years now and I am doing so much better. I still see or hear the occasional thing, but overall I do not hallucinate anymore. One time me and a couple of my friends smoked some weed that some dickhead put PCP in. The first full-on trip I noticed was sitting down beside my friend and was on my iPad. At the same time my friend had the same iPad and was doing the exact things I was doing on the iPad. Next thing I notice, he stands up and I see him get pushed into the couch like some weird animation from a ghost movie or something, just swept off his feet into the couch. Next thing I can remember is running around my friend's cow farm for a good while. My friends, who didn't smoke the weed, finally got us back inside. When we got back inside I kept hearing my friends talking to me even though they were not talking. My friend also ended up full on stomping on my head as a joke and I felt absolutely nothing. My friend on the other hand said he saw the devil and a weird demonic girl sitting in the corner, which I thought was creepy. Anyways, that's why I buy legal weed now, laughing my butt off. Also have done acid, saw how energy moved and worked, saw the connections between plants and the world. Honestly, it was one of the most beautiful experiences I have had. My creepiest was an auditory hallucination after taking too much Benadryl. Every few minutes I would hear my mom yelling my name along with bursts of a man laughing. Was crazy scary. Had to put the TV on and wait the 4 to 6 hours it took to wear off. It's pretty tame, but when I woke up in the middle of the night recently I clearly saw a huge spider gliding down from my light from the ceiling. I switched the light on rapidly and saw nothing. I even searched the floor and under the bed until I was fully awake and realized I had just been seeing things. My only experience with hallucinations was due to a rare side effect of some antidepressants I was taking during a stay in a psych ward, due to depressions. Was trying to watch a soccer game together with the rest of the patients that wanted to, but some guy that I didn't know was blocking my view of the TV. Tried to ask the guy to move, but the remaining patients told me there was no one there. I freaked out and went to tell the nurse on duty, who informed me that it was a known side effect of the medication and that she'd talk to the doctor in the morning to put me on something different. She offered to give me something to help me sleep, but once I knew what was going on and that it wasn't a sign of me actually going insane, I told her no thanks, I want to watch the soccer game. Went back to the TV room and the damn dude was still wearing an MIT hoodie. I'm German, BTW, and I only vaguely know what MIT is, but I must have seen someone wearing that hoodie somewhere before and my memory dredged it up, because I was able to find similar ones on the internet after, and sunglasses and shuffling a deck of cards. I asked another patient to trade seats with me after that so the idiot wasn't standing in the way and tried to ignore him, and once the soccer game was over he was gone. In hindsight, I thought it was rather amusing, but in the state of mind I was in back then it wasn't. I did ayahuasca and saw reptilian people who told me I was one of few people to travel to their dimension and that humanity was in danger of destroying itself. Drugs are trippy. I've only hallucinated once. I was a bit sleep deprived and driving home from work at 3 a.m. As I came over the hill crest, I saw a guy run out to the middle of the road from the brush on the side. He stopped right in front of me and started waving his arms, begging me to stop. I slammed on my brakes so I wouldn't hit him. When I looked back up, he was gone. I had to pull over and catch my breath after that one. So sometimes, rarely, my BF and I like to take LSD and play video games, board games etc. Usually it's really fun. Anyway, once we went on a little mini holiday and stayed in accommodation that was like a bunch of little cabins with large cabin in the middle with vending machines and pool tables etc. On the first night we decided to take some LSD and play the board games we found in our cabin. After a few hours of playing we decided to walk to the middle cabin and buy a few bottles of water from the vending machine, and as soon as we stepped out of our cabin my BF completely changed. I was laughing and he was immediately telling me to shush and to stay very quiet and was obviously freaking out. He put his arm around me and held me very close and we basically ran to the vending machine and back because he was literally terrified. Once we got back to our cabin he locked the doors and windows etc. I asked him what was wrong and he said that outside our cabin were hundreds of ghosts, that very obviously looked dead, and they were all staring towards our cabin and trying to grab my hands etc. He explained it like they were already around the cabin and we somehow disturbed whatever they were doing and that's why they were trying to grab me. He actually still gets stressed whenever I bring this up and can describe a few of the ghosts with lots of detail, and he isn't a spiritual person at all. I'm sure to someone sober we looked absolutely mental, but he was shook. He's refused to do LSD since that day. I once saw a woman get hit by a pickup truck on a rainy night. Because of the wet pavement, instead of the truck's tire just rolling over her, she got dragged between the tire and the pavement for about 10-12 feet before the driver came to a stop. He backed up off of her and she was helped to her feet. The back of her shirt was completely missing. It was like she was wearing a cape backwards. Her back was brutally scraped up and bleeding bad. Someone offered to call for an ambulance and she just said no, I am fine, and walked off. I think about that very frequently. I don't know how she wasn't just squished to death. The first time I smoked weed, I smoked quite a lot with a friend who was quite experienced with smoking weed. So naturally his tolerance was quite high. I had never ever even touched a joint. So he thinks my tolerance will be quite high okay as well, as I am quite tall and heavy. So he tells that he bought his favorite kind of weed which was really high quality. So we started smoking the weed, and I feel a lot is going on. But I thought it was not enough, as I thought that all of those rappers smoke at least 10 times as much. Then slowly I started to hallucinate. The hallucinations started really simple. For example, if I wanted to turn left whilst I was walking, I had to turn my head to the right, and the other way around. After we sat down for a minute I suddenly had to throw up. That is where the creepy shit begins. While I was throwing up I felt like I was Smore, the dragon in Lord of the Rings. I had only seen the movie trailer and read the books, but had never seen any movie of the series yet. The thing is, the scenes I can remember going on in my head came back quite accurate in the movie when I saw it for the first time. Funny little side note, in the moment I never realized I threw up, I just thought I was spitting fire. I had sleep paralysis as a teen. Now I know how to control it, so I'm not bothered anymore. I saw and heard plenty of stuff, but I remembered once I saw something that scared me so bad I didn't sleep for 2 days afterwards. I was afraid of falling asleep. It was an old lady, dressed as in 18th century, all in black with a veil on. She wouldn't move when I looked at her but would come closer and closer when I was blinking. At some point she was right next to me but would not do anything, she would just stare at me. It was really scary because I saw every detail, lace, wrinkle, hair. I could hear her breath and feel her presence. To give you an idea, she looked like the old lady from Insidious, but less evil and more detailed. Still gives me the chills when I think about it. When I was about 14, met a girl and we were texting as you do until the early hours of the morning. We would stay up talking and messaging until around 3:15 a.m. most nights, get 2 hours sleep, then go to school the following day wondering why we felt like shit, young lovey. After doing this for about 3 or 4 days it started to have a major effect on my health, and one of the side effects were hallucinations. I was coming home from school one evening on the bus when I dropped off to sleep, only to be awoken by a Native American with just a tiki mask on, nothing else. I live in the UK, so this may make it even trippier. This man kept saying he was going to sacrifice me to his gods and that I had to follow him to an altar so I could please him before the ceremony began. He kept thrusting his spear at me as he would to hurry something along. I genuinely thought it was real, and although the whole thing was probably over in a matter of seconds, I started to freak the fuck out. The driver had to pull over to calm me down, and only then did I start realize I was tripping from too little sleep. Luckily the bus was empty, as I was one of the last people to get off, so didn't have the bleep ripped out of me at school for it. I was pretty shook up for a few days after, and even now 13 years later when I think about I still freak out a bit, simply because the mind is so powerful it can make you believe anything is real if it isn't functioning correctly. I was showering whilst on mushrooms and I saw a bucket that was under my sink sort of jump forward as if it was being kicked. I had to laugh at how much it scared me. It literally jumped and muttered a sound that sounded a bit like "you." Hallucinations aren't so much as seeing things that are 100% not there. They're more augmentations of reality. One time in the middle of the night when I was 7 or so, I got up to use the bathroom. When I was walking back to my bedroom, I saw a person laying in my bed tucked under the covers, and I camped out in the bathroom for most of the night after that. I used to take Ambien, which caused some odd hallucinations. The creepiest was the large grey face of an elephant looking at me from my closet. It'd just be there, blinking at me. Finally it would dissolve into the shadows and be gone. A long time ago I saw a TV commercial for coffee with John Cleese. In the middle of addressing the camera he suddenly stops, leans forward, and lets out a blood-curdling scream. I almost had a heart attack. He then went back to the regular commercial spiel. Never saw the commercial again. I thought that it was strange, but it was John Cleese, so I assumed it was an intentional thing to mess with the viewer and part of the commercial. I believed that for decades, but occasionally I'd remember it and it seemed so strange, so one day recently I researched Cleese's commercials from the 80s and found it on YouTube. 1986 Maxwell House Master Blend. Definitely the same commercial. No scream. I saw this creepy, cool thing crawling of a corner in the ceiling, while I was in bed. I knew what it was, and blinked, but that thing just went a little back inside the corner. I closed my eyes for some seconds, then it was gone. When I was in high school I had, pretty sure, swine flu. I found out later that I'd been running a fever of 106 off and on. I was not very lucid for most of the illness. But towards the beginning of it I remember lying in bed seeing a circle of dark hooded figures standing around my bed. Like the Nazgul from Lord of the Rings. Totally freaked me out. I've only seen a hallucination a few times. Here's what happened. When I was 5, my brother-in-law, like a typical adult brother-in-law would, told me things to try to scare me. One of these things was a creature called Red Eyes. I lived in Alabama, and had no internet, so I couldn't see the truth. So anyways, one night, my mom was outside, and it was around 9:30. I went outside to see what she was doing, being the nosy 5-year-old I was, and my brother-in-law locked me out. Since I had an overreactive imagination, I looked towards the side of the house and saw a tall creature that had no arms, and could have looked like that weird purple monster from Monsters University, only it was an ugly brown. When I almost busted the door down, screaming my head off thinking it was going to eat me, only then was I let back inside. When I was inside, my brother-in-law said that was Red Eye's brother, so I started believing him after that, until I was 7, and finally got internet. Also, I once saw this orb outside the window of my bedroom in the middle of the night, and started having full-on conversations with it. It never talked, so I thought it was a good listener. Turns out it was the reflection of a lamp on the window. Also, I once woke up, and saw the silhouette of a typical alien on the curtains of my bedroom window. I was truly an idiot when I was 5. Had a high fever as a child. I was laying on my bed blankly staring out the bay window and saw a black panther jump through the window and crouch on the floor as if preparing to pounce. I stared at it, total deer in the headlights, like it was a tree and it would see me if I didn't move or something, and then it jumped at me. I closed my eyes before it landed on me but swore I could feel the weight and its teeth and claws on me. Then my mom came on and was shaking me. She said I was screaming bloody murder and kept screaming for at least 5 minutes after she got in the room. When I was sleeping at my grandparents' house I woke up in the middle of the night and saw a giant neon green spider on the ceiling, crawling to me. I instantly jumped up to turn on the lights and it was gone. Damn mushrooms.